Welcome to the Federal Retirement Podcast. My name is David Rates from Benchmark Financial Group, and every month we discuss important topics regarding the retirement planning process for federal employees. This Lunch and Learn series is an interactive discussion where individuals can ask questions. To join these discussions live, you may register by joining our email list at bfgkc.com. We also provide in-person retirement planning and benefit education to federal employees. To learn more about these seminars or to schedule a seminar at your federal agency, go to our website at bfgkc.com and click on seminars. Additionally, if you're looking for assistance to get your retirement on the right track, set up an appointment with us today. You can schedule an appointment online by visiting our website at bfgkc.com or email me at david.rates@bfgkc.com. The contact information is also listed in the description. By setting up a complimentary consultation, we can review your financial situation and develop a plan to meet your financial goals. We hope you enjoy this topic and hope to connect with you soon.
Welcome to our online seminar. This is Benchmark's monthly discussion with federal employees. My name's Gary Rates, founder of Benchmark Financial Group. Today, we're talking about ending the rat race. So what does that mean to you? Have you decided to pick a date to retire? Are you ready to move forward? Today, we'll give you some thoughts and ideas to help you transition through retirement. We'll touch upon many topics like how long does it take to process the paperwork, or when can the new retiree expect their first annuity payment? With proper preparation and the right resources, Benchmark can offer you the tools and expertise to help you address these issues confidently. At this point, I'll turn the microphone over to David Rates, president of Benchmark Financial Group. David?
Thanks for tuning in to this month's call, everyone. Obviously, as I'm sure you guys are all well aware of, the fact that retirement offers have been in the news quite a bit lately. We've been having a lot of conversation with clients about potentially, weighing the pros and cons of early retirement and buyouts. There's been different offers kind of all across the board, and a lot of folks have been potentially looking at speeding up their retirement timeframe by a few years. So we thought it'd be worthwhile to just touch on the formal process of retirement again, and feel free to chime in with any questions that might come to mind. All righty, so timing of retirement. When is the best time to retire? Usually, standard rule of thumb is when you get to the point of submitting the formal paperwork to HR, oftentimes they want that 90 days out. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So it's usually just worthwhile, if at all possible, to verify timing with an HR person. OPM backlog. There's always a backlog there's always a bottleneck of folks retiring, and depending on the time of year that you retire, it impacts how that bottleneck works. But as of February of this year, average processing time at OPM was about 55 days. One of the caveats of what's going on this year with the fork in the road offer is a lot of folks are getting paid like full-time employees until the end of September. So the unique little caveat about this year is a lot of the folks that took the fork in the road retirement, they're going to have their retirements process at the end of September. So it's going to kind of be a wave of folks getting into the hopper earlier than usual for the end of the year bottleneck. And in a nutshell, the earlier you submit your application, the less chance of a delay, assuming the application was filled out correctly. Annual leave and final paycheck are the two pieces of the pie that are paid by your agency, and then your agency shifts all that information to OPM. So when you're in that process of moving from active employer, recent retiree from your agency to OPM retiree, you'll get an important notification from NSC, which is the NFC notice of separation. It's usually sent between 30 and 45 days, or a month or two after the point of retirement. And that's essentially when you know that your agency's moved you onto the books as a retiree with OPM, and there'll be a tracking number. So when you get that separation letter, you know that you're moving through the pipeline. The pipeline doesn't necessarily move at lightning speed, but at least you're moving in a forward direction. So keep that in the back of your mind. When you get to the point of being a retiree with the Office of Personnel Management, they'll eventually send you what's called a Civil Service Annuitant number, CSA number. It's essentially your identification number as a retiree with the federal government. Once you get that CSA number, it'll come in a welcome packet, but about a week after that initial welcome packet, they'll mail you a temporary password. The temporary password is important because it's going to give you the ability to access OPM's website. And the OPM's website, which is servicesonline.opm.gov, it's kind of like the easiest and simplest source of information to get periodic updates about where your retirement application's at in the pipeline. So it's not like they're not updating it on a daily basis, but once you get assigned a case manager, once they give you a interim pay, there'll be a statement for your interim payment. So it's always a good thing to remember that Services Online is the easiest resource. If you're trying to call OPM and get on the phone to talk to somebody, a live person, usually that's about 30-45 minute wait on the fast end. So knowing that you can log in at their website is a good tool to have in the back of your head. So once you get the receipt of that CSA number, like we said a second ago, you're on the books as a retiree with TSP as well. And it usually takes, if you have to wait until the point of retirement to potentially move some TSP money, it usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks to be on the books as a retiree with Thrift. So this is just a snapshot of what that CSA number looks like. It comes in kind of like it's the size of a credit card. Alrighty, so when you get to the point of being an OPM retiree, or I guess when you start the process of retirement, what gets paid first? Final paycheck gets paid from your agency, usually about a couple weeks after the point of retirement, and your annual leave payment. That payment comes from your agency. Once you get those two, then you know that things are going to get shifted to OPM, and you're going to be on interim pay status. Interim pay comes from the Office of Personnel Management. And I would say interim pay it's kind of a crapshoot. You throw your name in the hat, hope it lands on top, and hurry up and wait until OPM starts paying you. And usually it's about 60 to 80% of what your final paycheck is going to be. It's just you don't know if they're going to be. It's kind of a crapshoot if it's going to be 60%, 70%. 80%. So eventually they'll pay you everything that you're owed, but you're kind of floating in limbo land for a while there, because what OPM is doing is auditing your service history, and it just takes them a little while to crunch the final numbers to determine what that exact final pension payment is going to be on your FERS pension. So interim pay status, like we said, 60-80% of that full annuity, and your first full pension payment is usually about 60 to 90 days after retirement. This one kind of depends on how colorful your service history is and the time of year that you retire. So end of the year is always a big bottleneck. Sometimes when you're retiring mid-year, there's not a crush of people that are all retiring at the same time, but sometimes you get some HR folks that go into summer vacay mode, and it just takes. There's usually a mid-year lull where people are in kind of like lake season, summer vacation mode, like we said. And so the timing of that first full pension payment really depends on how complex your service history is. In this wave of retirement offers, we've been having a few more conversations lately with folks that have divorce decrees. If you're in that boat, if you have a divorce that has to be calculated into your first pension payment, you definitely want to do your due diligence about that, because Uncle Sam requires an additional level of documentation. Uncle Sam requires a court order available for processing, and it takes time to get that submitted to the federal government, and you have to coordinate with your former spouse. So that one's a little bit like turning an aircraft carrier. So you want to give yourself enough lead time to make sure that that's processed the way that it's supposed to be processed. A little snapshot of how it all works. LPM verifies your service history before issuing any final FERS pension payments, and you get all the money that you're owed. So when you're getting 60, 70, 80%, it's not like they don't pay you the chunk that you're owed. It's just they account for that, all of that on the back end. So the retroactive annuity payments that weren't paid during interim payment get paid to you, but they also subtract FEHB and the health insurance premiums that were due while you're on interim payment status as well. So you don't need to worry about paying the FEHB premiums in terms of your pension payment. They're going to account for that on the back end and take care of that for you. So what happens to FEHB, dental, and vision? FEHB is transferred to OPM after retirement. When you're on interim pay period, when you're on interim pay status, no FEHB deductions are taken. And then, like we said a second ago, they'll retroactively deduct all of those premiums that are owed once retirement is finalized. Dental and vision is on their own little island. Dental and vision is all run through benefits. So when you retire, you'll get correspondence directly from benefits about paying that premium directly to them. So communicate with benefits on their website, benefits.com, or that phone number there. Moving on to TSP. It's always important to remember that TSP is one of the main pillars of your gross retirement income. It definitely is a complement to your FERS pension and FERS supplement and or Social Security income. I always say the pension and the supplemental piece are pretty mechanized. You have the most flexibility with how you use and invest TSP funds. It definitely requires planning and attention to help maximize those assets. Usually people are trying to pinpoint an amount of monthly income that they want spinning off of TSP savings, but there's also most of the time there's a chunk that needs to be invested and and saved for emergency opportunity withdrawals that crop up, which usually the big four there are house, car, medical, vacay funds. So keeping in mind that you want to have a plan for income and liquid growth with TSP money, and staying up to date on the fund options throughout the duration of retirement, or having a realistic conversation with yourself about, do I want to invest the amount of time that it takes to manage the TSP money correctly as a retiree. And again, you don't just want to set it and forget it approach as a retiree. You don't want to bury your head in the sand and hope it pans out the way that it's supposed to. All right, just a refresher on different TSP fund options. Reason we subdivided G and F. So the two main safe funds are G fund and F fund. G fund is short-term U.S. Treasuries. F fund is a bond fund, fixed income. C, S, and I, those are all stock funds. So CS and I are going to be quite a bit more volatile lately than G and F are. And then it's important to remember the different durations of the life cycle funds. Now, life cycle funds range all the way from 2070 to 2025. So 2070 would be the riskiest or the most the life cycle fund that has the most variability in the marketplace. 2025 and L income would be the safest, or the funds that have the least amount of variability in the marketplace. So just knowing how those durations on life cycle funds work is important. Generating money from TSP, income potential. It definitely depends on how much you and your agency contribute or primarily it depends on how much you contribute during your working years. It makes a major difference if you're putting in a minimum amount versus the maximum annual contribution every year. Maximizing contributions can significantly increase your income as a retiree. Oftentimes people are trying to pinpoint, where do I want to put those contributions? Do I want to put it all in the traditional side, all in the Roth side, or a combination of the two? Usually, if you're earlier on in the age spectrum, it's a little bit easier for tax reasons to put more into the Roth TSP side, because you've already paid taxes on the money that you're using to fund the Roth. Oftentimes, as people start to make more money, they're looking for additional tax deductions, which leads them down to putting more money into the traditional side of TSP, because each dollar that you put into traditional TSP reduces your current tax bill to Uncle Sam. So there's a bit of planning that takes place to pinpoint the sweet spot between the two. But if you're diligent about TSP savings, it's not uncommon for TSP savings to generate as much monthly income as the FERS pension. And understanding the risk and reward difference for TSP funds, there's definitely a major difference between G fund and C fund. But in periods of time like now, where it's one thing if you move the money out of the market prior to the volatility taking place, but one thing you definitely don't want to do right now is panic sell, take your money out of C fund, S fund, or I fund and park it in G fund. That's kind of an exercise in locking in a loss, because if you take it out of the stock funds right now and park it in G, there's no ability for you to make that money back on the back end. So understanding that right now there's periods of time where volatility is a fact of life, but as long as you don't make rash emotional decisions, that's usually the best way to go. So different distribution options from TSP. Major in terms of a lump sum payment, this would be like you putting the money in your checking account. If you did that, that would be taxable income the year that you do it. So depending on the balance of your TSP, you add that number to your gross income for the year. Oftentimes people are looking to move all or a portion of traditional or Roth TSP funds to traditional or Roth IRAs. depending on the time of your retirement, sometimes it makes sense for people to leave a chunk of money in TSP and use that for monthly payments if they're trying to plan around the age 59 and a half age that applies to early withdrawals, or a fixed annuity option. Most of the time, people are looking to use monthly payments at a specific dollar amount or roll the money out to outside IRAs because there's more investment options and a little bit more liquidity options that you have in the outside world. So, but it's always an exercise in making an informed decision about what you're doing. We've had a number of clients that have been in a position to take advantage of the VERA offers. If that's if that's a scenario where they could retire at any age with 25 years or 50 with 20 years of service, sometimes they're in a spot where they need to plan around age 59 and a half. And it's important to know that you can use TSP for monthly income if you made it to age 55 and you have 30 years of service under your belt and not have to worry about an early withdrawal penalty. So you can use TSP, have a fixed monthly payment coming out to you if you're retired age 55 plus, and not have to worry about paying an extra 10% for early withdrawals. Still have to pay federal and potentially state income tax, but the early withdrawal piece is not a thing that you need to worry about. All righty. So how do you get the process going? Our first meeting is usually what we call a fact-finding meeting. It's an information gathering and sharing meeting. We'll usually send you a list of identifying information to gather, and the more accurate that information is, the more accurate that we can be with crunching the numbers that we're going to review with you on the back end. So second meeting, we call that one version 1, where we take all that information, put it together into a written plan for you that gives you just options for each piece of the federal stuff. So what does it look like for survivor options on your pension? What does it look like for options for the federal employee group life insurance? What is the first supplemental income stream going to be? Or what is my Social Security income stream going to be? And usually the big one is folks are looking for an income strategy with TSP funds. So we spend a lot of time mapping out what do you want for monthly income and what do you want to have be your liquid growth bucket. And then one of the big ones too is we always run a net income comparison. So it's important to take a look at what the deductions that you have as an active employee relative to the deductions that go away once you get to the point of being a retiree. So spend a lot of time in the second meeting on that version 1, and then in subsequent meetings, if it makes sense to implement a strategy, we figure out a time to get that piece going. Finalize the choices that you map out the choices that you want to make on the FERS piece. Weigh the pros and cons and iron out a plan or what you want to do with TSP funds. If that's a strategy that takes you down a road of opening up outside accounts, then oftentimes we'll set up a meeting to tackle that piece, get those accounts opened and ready for funding. So, and then after the point of retirement, it's an ongoing review process from there. So life happens. So sometimes people need to make adjustments to their plan. And we spend a lot of time reviewing with folks after the point of formal retirement. So what items do I need to bring for the first meeting? Just a recent pay stub. So a copy of the leave-in earnings statement, copy of any sort of retirement estimate that you can get your hands on. So an employee benefit statement is always helpful if you can track that down. Any retirement estimates or identifying information from Employee Express or MyPay. A recent TSP statement is always helpful because we want to get an idea of just approximate balance in the funds that you're invested in. Any other investment accounts that are earmarked for retirement income that you like included, and then detail on any life insurance policies or long-term care policies that you have in force. Social Security statement, just a recent one. Divorce decree is important if that's part of the conversation. And then sometimes people want to add spouse's benefits as well. So if you're interested in going down that road, then send you a list of identifying info to grab for your spouse's benefit. How about any questions, Betty?
I do have one. My ex-husband did not get anything for my retirement in the divorce decree or any type of survivor's benefit.
Okay.
I'm taking the early retirement, so I'm going to be done next week.
All
Are
right.
they going to come back and ask for that divorce decree?
They could, but I wouldn't worry about it because the wording in the FERS retirement paperwork asks, is there a former spouse with a court order that
Right.
a portion of your pension is entitled to them? So
And I hard
in that
put on him, so
in that sense, if there's not a court order, because if there was a court order, there'd be a quadro that has language tied to your pension payment. And then in addition to that, Uncle Sam wants a court order available for processing. So
okay.
I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. Like I said, they might ask for it just to have documentation of it, but if there isn't specific language that says this, your former spouse gets half the pension, then you don't
Right.
worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Tracy?
Possibly, I gotta look through my 40 sticky notes here.
Well,
The whirlwind.
I'm happy to answer them if you think of any. So
When I did my retirement forms,
yeah,
I did knock my life insurance back by 75%. I think I had been told that in some other training. Is that correct?
yeah, but
Okay,
you
good.
want to check because it's one thing to do the 75% reduction on the basic. The basic piece is what that question is tied towards. The option A will automatically reduce. If
Okay,
you have multiples of salary, that's the one that you want to keep an eye on because the multiple, like option B and option C
I
coverage,
don't I
are the
don't have
ones that get
that.
really expensive.
Yeah, I
And
just have the option. I just have the basic.
all right, so if you just did basic with 75% reduction, you're good to go. That's the cheapest
Okay,
way to hang on to FEGLI. So,
okay.
and the thing about that one is at the end of the 75% reduction, you're still going to have a quarter of whatever the death benefit was at the point that you retired. So that 25% is going to maintain its a permanent insurance status. It's like
Right.
a lot of times people will think I'll just replace it with like a 20-year term policy. Well, if you get 20-year term when you're 50, it's going to expire when you're 70. So having some permanent coverage is in place is nice too.
Okay. Only other thing I had a question on, I have a missing SF or SF50
Yeah.
for 6 months of employment. I put in an HR ticket probably a month and a half ago. They're trying to track it down, but I'm going to be leaving. Do you know how they do that? I mean, they said they're going to archives, but I don't even think it's probably in archives. I don't think it probably ever left the Farm Service Agency office I worked in
How much how
building.
much time was it?
It was 6 months, and maybe it's not significant enough to make a difference.
Um, that
But
one's
it,
kind of tricky because if it was like if it was a human error on the federal government's end, on the one hand, you want those 6 months because
yeah,
I mean
I
it's gonna
worked
make it's not gonna be a huge impact, but those are your 6 months and they're gonna have an impact on your final pension
well,
payment.
and my retirement date won't be until 9:30. They're still looking for it, but I'm not gonna have
But at the
access.
same time, it's not like getting that yarn ball unraveled is not instantaneous.
Okay.
So it's gonna be an exercise in being politely annoying.
Okay.
And if you're trying your best to be politely annoying and you get stonewalled going into the end of September, it's probably gonna be I mean, you're gonna have to ask yourself, what's the best route to go?
Right.
Worry about the 6 months and just worry about going into retirement or delaying your retirement to get credit for those 6 months.
Yeah, and I won't be able to delay the retirement because
Yeah.
because I did the DRP too. Okay, well, I'll do that, and I do have a contact. I'm gonna write another contact down before I leave next week.
But politely annoying is the name of the game there. You don't want to shoot the messenger because then then you're not going to get that problem solved. But
Well, I'm hoping the messengers are still gonna be there because
I know.
HR had a lot, they lost a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got Doug in the room here with me
Sorry.
too. So we have
Yeah,
two in here.
sorry, I haven't taken anything yet, but I am eligible for the VERA.
Yeah.
And I think I understand, but my understanding is I started late enough that my minimum retirement age would have been 60 and 20 years of service. And the way I understand the VERA, I'm 50, I'll be 56 now, I'll be 57. Anyway, if
Okay.
I were to accept the VERA at this point in time, those 3 years between 57 and 60, I would not be eligible for the supplement, correct? That's the way I understood. Then I could get it from 60 to 62.
All right. So minimum retirement age, that one depends on the year that you were born. So
So
you
it doesn't base it on the year I started, age when I started.
the age well, I guess it all can it minimum retirement age is a byproduct of the year that you were born, not the age when you were not the age when you started. A lot of people right now are going into 57 for MRA. For a long time, it was 56, and then it was like 56 in a few months. And
Yeah.
most of the people that we're seeing right now, it's 57. So that one, that one would be one to double check
Okay.
the
Okay.
parameters of it, because the early retirement is 50 with 20 years of service, or any age with 25 years of service, to take advantage of the VERA, the early retirement authority.
Right. And I would be in the 50 years and 20 years of service. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So we've had a lot of folks that, let's say, the interesting one has been, let's say somebody was like 52, 53, and they were planning to retire at minimum retirement age with 30 years of service, which was 57. Taking advantage of the VERA has sped that time frame up for a lot of folks. Like, if they're 53 and they've got at least 25 years of service in, they can retire now and not have to work, 3 or 4 more years to get to 57, for
Right.
instance. So
Right. Do you know then on the COLAs, are you eligible, as long as you're at the minimum retirement age, you get to take the COLAs, correct?
a lot of folks have been, depending on where you work, a lot of folks, it's a scenario where their COLAs are frozen until they get to 62. So that's probably where you'd be, or
Okay.
you'd have a window of time where you weren't seeing any cost of living increases, but then once 62 hits, COLAs start to kick in.
Okay. And then my last question is on, the supplement is based on, essentially, isn't it? My understanding is years of service divided by 40 as a
Yeah, it's years of service divided by 40 relative to what your age 62 Social Security payment is going to be.
Right. And when you do those Social Security estimates, I guess my question is, does it take a significant hit if you, like 57, because that 62 figure they give you on your assumes that you're going to be working another 5 more years at X salary. I guess I didn't know how much of an impact that would have as a calculation. By
The one thing, all right, so the one thing to think about or keep in your mind with Social Security is the benefit is constantly changing, but the benefit's changing every year that you're paying in. So, and they index your earnings for inflation too. But if, let's say, you retired from the federal government and you kind of rode off into the sunset and you weren't working and contributing into Social Security past life from the federal government, then your Social Security benefit would be pretty darn close to the number that you had when you retired. But
Okay.
if you worked and contributed after life from the federal government, then your age 62 Social Security benefit takes into account all of your working history, whereas the FERS supplement is just based off of your FERS years of service. So the earlier on that you hired in with the federal government, the closer the supplemental payment will be to what your age 62 Social
Right.
Security payment is going to be.
Right.
But Social Security is always higher. It's usually anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month higher than the supplemental payment.
Yeah.
So, because they're like, if you had military time for whatever reason, that's not included in the first supplement. So,
Okay.
it's not uncommon for folks to see an income gap between the two.
Mhm.
Right, thank you.
If you guys think of any other questions, just send them my way.
I plan to set up a personal session with you guys this summer to go over the TSP and what to do with it and everything. So
Sounds good. Well,
just trying to get out the door now.
we're looking forward to talking to you in the near future. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. And if you think of a question and you want to reach out, feel free to give me a call. You can always send me an email or submit it on our website. Thanks for tuning in and hope to talk to you guys soon.